Now, our next guest is the host of the award-winning Hard Shoulder on News Talk and a former host of this very show.
He sat in for you.
He sure did indeed. Did a hell of a job.
He did a hell of a...
But he's moved on to much bigger things now. And he thought he was going to be taking you with him.
Kieran Cuddihy, good morning. How are you?
Great, yeah. How are you guys?
Sorry, can we just take a moment? The two of you are in verse. I'm just saying you're wearing the exact same thing, just in the opposite.
If I lie upside down, it looks the same.
That's what happens. Steady on now, steady on.
Paint me like one of your French girls. Is this the sort of antics we're going to see on the Tonight Show with Kieran Cuddihy?
Dressing like Tommy Boer, lying upside down.
Lying upside down.
No. Well, there might be some reinvention of how things have happened in the past.
Okay.
I won't say any more. You know, people have to tune in tomorrow night to find out.
Seriously? Is there a bit of...
You know, little tweaks, you know what I mean? You don't want to completely reinvent the wheel, Muireann, but you've got to...
Put your stamp on it.
If you're not swimming, you're drowning.
Well, this is it, because
business
it's a hell. The Tonight Show, it's a bit of an institution.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you think of some of the former hosts, Vincent Brown, you think of Ivan Yates, Matt Cooper, you think of Claire and Ciara, who's just on it as well. So, yeah, as an institution, the people who watch it like to know what they're going to be seeing, but you think it's time to maybe mix it up a little bit.
It's the same with anything. Like, it's the same when you guys take over here from people who've done the show before, or when I started doing the Hard Shoulder after Ivan was doing it as well. Like, you've got to make it your own, but at the same time, Tommy, you're right. You know what I mean? There's people who tune in and they know what they're getting, and it's why they're tuning in every night. And you don't want to kind of alienate people immediately. But what you'll probably find is, like with any show, is that the change is kind of incremental, and it's over time your own personality gets imposed on the show. And I'm sure that was the same for you here. You know what I mean? Like, to a degree, at the start, you think you're reinventing the wheel, and it's only maybe a year or two into it, you kind of look back and think, actually, we've kind of changed a lot over the course of working.
And I suppose it's not like you're going to be stuck for news, because there is so much going on, but in a world of misinformation, disinformation, and what is your mission with the show?
Well, look, you've got a few different missions with the show, one of which is to inform people and that they go away informed and, I was going to say educated, maybe a bit more enlightened about what's happening in the day, but ultimately to do it in an entertaining way as well. Like, you know, that old kind of, what was it in Iraq? The WMD, the weapons of mass destruction. WBD, worthy but dull. You got to avoid worthy but dull. You know, you've got to, but that's one of them. You know, you've got to entertain people at that hour of the night. You know, they're not going to watch it. You've got to, as well, reflect, I think, what people are talking about, what they care about, rather than telling people what you think they should care about. Yeah. You know what I mean? I think that's really important as well. And the third kind of target I think you have to hit is what you mentioned there. It's making sure that you're accurate in terms of it, or that you reflect a kind of a reality that sometimes isn't reflected, particularly like in online discourse.
Yeah. What about, debate though? This is what Tonight Show is renowned for as well. Are you looking forward to that?
Oh yeah, well you see, like...
Because you have the radio show, but it's, you know, it may be a bit more difficult to stir it up, but very much this is a panel here and you're the referee in the middle of it.
Yeah, there'd be more guests. We would never really have more than, at max you might have 3 people in studio and radio, whereas they might have up to 4 on the Tonight Show any given night. And look, you've just got to find the right balance. You know, like, people just shouting over each other kind of for 15, 20 minutes doesn't do anything. Like, that's all heat, no light. At the same time, you do want a bit of needle in it. You know what I mean? You want people to show that they care about it and that there are kind of very different points of view out there and that people are passionate about them. And I think to a degree you're right, like, that's the refereeing job. It's letting in that little bit of heat, but not that it kind of drowns out the light.
But a lot of the time it can be like a lot of rhetoric and fight for no reason, when we're living in a time where accountability is something we're talking about a huge amount at the moment, certainly within, we'll say, even our own public finances in Ireland. And is that something that, how do you find the state of politics in the country
I find it really dispiriting, the first kind of 6 weeks or however long the government have been up and running, because with everything that we are talking about, you know, from an international point of view, and we all were kind of watched with our jaws on the floor, that press conference in the White House on Friday night, with everything that's happened in Ukraine, with everything Gaza, kind of economic trade wins. I know you're going to be talking about kind of Oscars fashion a little bit later. And I actually was chatting to Helen Steele outside. I mean, already the big fashion houses are kind of retreating in terms of how much money they're spending, how much money they're making. There's a sense everybody is kind of on edge a little bit about the kind of global economy with all of that happening, and then our own domestic problems like the housing crisis kind of continuing unabated, and there's a real sense of panic amongst government reps about how that's going to play out. I think they felt Housing for All was the plan and it was working, and maybe they'd have to ramp it up, but it was the blueprint, and there's a real sense of panic. And despite all of that, what are the two things that they've been preoccupied with? How long Michael Lowry gets to ask questions for every week in the Dáil, and whether Éigeann Bréaga translates directly as telling lies in Irish or telling untruths, and whether there's a difference. I mean, it makes you want to put
That was between Mary Lou McDonald and Micheál Martin when he spoke off Gaeilge.
Who cares?
Well, I'm glad that you have the same frustration, because this is what people at home are feeling as well. Like, we're talking about kids with
places children not getting
schools. Like, I mean, it's so infuriating sometimes.
If you're one of those parents, right, and it's not only
but it is our role.
What else are you waiting for? You're probably waiting for speech and language therapists that you don't have. You're waiting for, for your assessment of needs, which you're meant to get within 6 months under the Disability Act. That's 20 years old this year, the Disability Act, and that 6-month target has never been hit.
And it's over 14,000 people waiting.
Assessment of needs. Then after you get it, you're waiting for your speech and language therapist, your occupational therapist, your physical therapist, your physiotherapist. You're waiting for that school place. And like I say, they're having a row about whether Éigeann Bréaga means telling lies or telling untruths.
So can you get answers? You know, like, because the big politicians will come in to see you, and they do see you on the hard shoulder. 2 institutions you're part of. There's a lot of pressure on your shoulders.
There is, but you know what? Like, sorry, having said all of that, like, if you politicians, overwhelmingly, they're in it for the right reasons. Like, you know, they do want to do that. You know, what's that great John Hume line of, like, your job as a politician, very simple one, it's just to improve the living standards of your constituents, you know, and they want to do that. And I think sometimes they get sucked into that kind of vortex of pointless rows as well. And I would hope that they would welcome the opportunity to not talk about them for an hour on the television and talk about things that actually matter to the people who are watching at home. Yeah,
which is hopefully what we'll be doing with the new show. You won't have to do Oscars fashion tonight. You're not on until tomorrow night. How are you feeling about taking over? You must be at the Oscars. About getting going. You must be mad for Rhodes.
Oh yeah. You know yourselves. You just want to get going.
Waiting.
Yeah, the waiting is absolute worst.
So are you dumping me? You're not going to, when Tommy's off on holidays or anything, you're not going to come in and sit down?
Well, I didn't want to do it on television.
You didn't want?
I didn't want to do it here, Muireann. But
and don't you be dumping me and heading off to join him in the Tonight Show as well.
We had a great run.
That was all the talk. Muireann O'Connell was gone.
I'm doing it in person.
They even set up a WhatsApp group together, the future of the Tonight Show. Isn't that right?
Oh, the reports that I was moving to the Tonight Show. I would never leave you, ever, 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 ever.
Listen, we wish you all the best.
Thanks, Tommy.
You're going to be a busy boy for the next while, but what an opportunity as well.
Listen, thanks a million.
Everyone at home delighted. More work for Kieran.
Where? Oh, sorry, at home, yeah.
Well, listen, I love, because I use the Tonight Show podcast even in the mornings, reading it or listening to it as well to get my...
I'll give you a shout out.
Kieran Cuddihy.
You're like Martin Kingdon the weather back in the day.
Thank you so much. Back with you on Ireland Day. I'm in just a minute.